So today I'm going to do a video on scales, and the reason is before we can understand chords or a lot of other stuff, we need to know what scales are. And key signatures are also going to be an important part of this, of understanding scales. I'm not going to do that in this particular lesson, but maybe in another one. So here, I'm focusing on major scales, which are the most common scale used in Western music. So I'm going to start with the C scale, make it really simple. So our most basic scale has 8 notes in it. So that's an octave. You could do 2-octave scales, you could do 3-octave scales, 4 octaves, 5. But for the purposes of this lesson, we're just going to focus on 1 octave. Every other octave, either below, or above, is basically going to be the same thing, just higher pitches. So we're starting here with middle C, our middle C scale, probably one of the most common ones. And so this C scale is going to have 8 notes in it. So we're starting at C. That's the note we start at. It's also the note we end at. So we're going to count up 8 notes and we're going to go back up to the next C. So here's our number 1 note. We're going to keep going till we've reached 8. And that's a C here. I'm going to go ahead and identify the other numbers, the other notes, just so you know what they are. We're just counting up from C. Alright, so that here, that's our basic scale. You might be familiar with the sound. So that was an ascending scale. And then descending. Alright, so that's a basic scale. That is the sound of a major scale. Now, if you were playing minor scales, those would sound different. Those would have different notes. But for this lesson, we're going to stick with just the major scale. So this is our major C scale. Now, there is a pattern for scales, which I think is going to be really helpful to know. And so I'm going to try to draw it out here for you guys to see. So, if I were to do, I'm butchering that, but that's okay. If I were to do a C scale, I'm going to draw it out here for you so you can see what it would look like on the staff. Now these are just generic notes. I'm not drawing any particular note right now. These are just like little note heads to mark the place of where each note would be. So I'm not at this point trying to draw any particular note. So I have 8 scales here. They're all moving up. This one being C, our first note, and up here is going to be C. That's our 8th note in the next octave. So there is a pattern for major scales that is super helpful to know. We have something called whole steps and half steps. And I'm going to go over that first before I write it out for you on the piano, because that's going to be a good visual representation for you. So on keyboards, a whole step is very easy to identify. We're basically going up a white key, except for here. When we see here, there is no black key in between. We're going to move up here. And then our whole steps are going to be black, black. So basically, wherever we go, we're skipping one key and moving on to the next one. So that's a whole step. So for example, whole, whole, whole. We're skipping this one now. Whole, skipping that one. Whole, whole. Now we're skipping this white one here, going back down here, etc. That gets into chromatic scales, which is another topic, not for this video. But a whole step is basically we're skipping one key and moving on to the next one. A half step, we're not skipping any key, so we're going to go straight from here to here. So if I were to play half steps, etc. So that's what the half step, the difference between a half step and a whole step. So I'm going to show you the pattern for a major scale. It's going to be made up of whole steps and half steps. So our pattern is going to be, and I'll mark it out between each of these notes to kind of give you an idea. It's going to be a whole step, whole, I'm going half step, whole step, whole, whole, half. That is our pattern across the board for any major scale. So, for example, if I was in the key of C, I'm starting at C, that's my 1. To get to my second one, I'm going up half a step, another half step, sorry, whole steps. We're going whole steps here, so C, whole step, whole step. Now we've got a half step, 3 more wholes, so whole, 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 and then we're ending off with another half step. So that's how I can find my C scale. If I know where my C note is and my 1 is, I can use that pattern to figure out where the rest of the notes are. So I'm going to try to show another example here with another key, a different scale. I'm gonna leave that C just so we know where we are. So let's try a G scale, because G is also a pretty common one. So if I find my G, all right, now this is going to be my number 1, my first note. So how do I know which notes are going to be in the G scale? We're going to go start here, go up a whole note. So that's my 2. We're going to go up another whole note. That's a 3. Then we're going to go half step. That's our 4. Sorry, I said note earlier when I meant step. Now we're going to do another whole step. Whole. Whole, which means now we're going here, because we're skipping 1. That's our number 7. I can't write black on black, but that's our 7. I can put it kind of halfway there. Maybe you can see that. 7. And then we're finishing off with another half step. So next one over. So 8, which goes back to our next G. So that's our G scale. And for reference, our notes are going to be these here. And this black note here, that's an F sharp. So it's F here, but we're going F sharp. So you can use that pattern to find your major scale for any key that you start in. Just that whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And that is a basic scale.